Hi, how are you? What have you done today? Perhaps you're tired after a long day of work. It's Sunday today. Maybe you went to church this morning. Maybe you took a day off to relax and you watched TV on Netflix. I spent today in the cool breeze of a tulip farm, surrounded by grass and the occasional sunlight and multicolored flowers. It was really nice to get away from classes, school, and especially buildspace and Twitter. On the drive there, I was a passenger in the car. I looked out the window and saw a lot of clouds because it recently rained and these clouds were like really high up, but you could see like the edges very clearly. They were really well defined and they were just huge. And I couldn't stop staring at them. And the only word that came to my mind was aloft. Right? It's essentially when I saw them, I was like, oh, those are clouds naturally, but they're also large amounts of water, just floating in midair, in the middle of the sky, above, you know, our country, and it's only moving very slowly with the wind. And then I started to think about other types of clouds. So, as I mentioned, it stormed recently, I think yesterday, lightning and thunder, and lightning is a form of electricity, and we don't think about that a lot, right? Like how nature naturally forms these electricity and this thunder that comes with it. Lightning is one of the purest forms of electricity, or just lightning is electricity is one of the purest forms of energy that we have today. And we work really hard as a society to produce electricity. So, whether this is done through a turbine, like for example, you heat up water until it evaporates and then it pushes the turbine that turns, and that generates electricity. But we need to do so much work to generate the electricity. Like, we probably spend millions, if not billions, on energy research and energy production. So batteries, all the modern devices that we have, it's just a lot. And we do this because these things are benefiting us. Phones allow us to communicate easier. They have applications that help us do things. So like a calculator, a clock, a watch, GPS to navigate. These are devices that can help us survive. But I'm starting to wonder if we're not going overboard in some areas, because I spent the last 2 weeks experimenting with AI, or longer than 2 weeks. I've been experimenting with AI, but the last 2 weeks I've really been invested in learning about what people are doing with technology, and especially on Twitter. I see so many people just being like, oh, just use AI. You have an assignment, just use AI. Or here, you can call AI from X, Y, and Z. Or you can message AI if you're sad, and it'll be your therapist, right? And I'm just like, cool, that's great that we have the technology to do this, but aren't we missing the real thing that makes us human? Um, aren't we missing like the people, the connection behind it? And I start to wonder, when is it going to slow down? Because I'm 1,000% sure it will slow down, and because what comes up must come down, right? There's no staircase that only goes up, and there's no potential of infinite growth. Infinity cannot exist in this world. Infinity is, you think people don't understand what a billion is or a trillion, and that's why you see like GitHub with like, oh, scroll this much to see how much $1 billion is actually worth. People cannot understand infinity unless you're, a mathematician, PhD, or whatever, that really does a lot of this math. But going back to my point, if you're in buildspace, you've probably been working on your projects, getting users, and getting caught up in a mix of troubleshooting, your bugs, if you're working on an app, feedback iterations from other people and users, and feeling imposter syndrome at times because you're wondering, why am I doing this? I don't have any sort of background. And I want to ask you a couple questions. I want you to reflect and really think about, why are you doing this? Is it for money? Like, do you not like your job and you need a source of income and you think this is the path out? Is it for fame? Is it for clout, like Twitter clout, right? If you make something so good that you go viral, the CEO of YouTube retweets your video, like, is it for societal good? Like, are you making something, say a filtration system for clean drinking water? Is it going to benefit society in some way? And that's the part that I've been thinking about a lot, because it's like, so many people are using AI in their applications when it doesn't need AI. And the true value of humans in this world is humans, right? Like, our ability to coexist and to collaborate and help each other, that's how, trading started. That's how collaborating started. Our ability to communicate and create things with other people is how we develop as such an advanced society. And now I feel like we're regressing, because we're taking AI and we're like, oh, take all this information that society made, run some models on it, and now you can forget about all the other stuff. But to me, that feels like you're going to lose a lot of people. And the people that don't have access to AI, that don't have access to, their own computer, that don't have access to internet, that don't have access to clean drinking water or electricity, those people, what happens to them? And obviously some people are gonna say, oh, this is what regulations are for, this is what the government should do, but I think the government has made it pretty clear that they're not able to keep up with the pace of development because, you know, during the Facebook hearings, right? Like they were asking, "Oh, Mark Zuckerberg, why is this on the internet?" And it's like it just they're not up to speed, right? And they won't be. It's not their job to be an expert in every single moving facet of society. But I feel like in buildspace, it's very possible to answer the question: why are you doing this? And is it worth it? For me, I first joined buildspace because I wanted to break into the tech world, right? I was studying for a mechanical engineering background or major or degree, I mean, and I have coded previously, um, and I think I'm pretty good at it. You know, I'm a very logical person. I understand the foundational concept, but I never had the chance to take actual real programming classes. And the reason that I didn't go for a CS degree is because um, I was intimidated. You know, back in my high school, everybody was doing CS, and I was not as good at them. So I felt like that wasn't for me. Um, but now I'm starting to realize that, you know, anything is doable if you have the time, motivation, effort, and resources. And buildspace just seems like a great way to get into the industry because back then they were doing Web3 introduction and stuff like that. And then they did nights and weekends, and I was like, great, I can actually test my ideas. And I started working on an app called Habitual, which got me really excited about coding. And, you know, I made a website, I made sort of a pseudo backend for it. Like I had authentication working, but I never really got the actual database working. But my biggest issue was I felt really alone when I was doing it. And I submitted 4 out of 6 weekly updates and I graduated from the program, but I didn't really get any feedback or users during that time. And that felt really disappointing to me because I was like, okay, well, if nobody else cares about this project, then why should I care? Right? Like, I thought I had a really good idea, but it was really hard to implement. And because it was hard to implement, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this for the people that need it. But if there's nobody that needs it, then why am I doing this? Right? So for season 3, I've come back and I was like, okay, screw coding. I'm just going to focus on making content that's true to myself. Right? Like I'm going to express my views and I will be the one to give feedback to others that were in the same situation with me. So like I have tried my best for these 2 weeks to be active on Twitter, to be there all the time, you know, message, like, interact with posts, tag whoever. And this past week I've been feeling really good about it because, you know, I've been able to review a bunch of apps. I'm getting to know more about what people are doing with it. And I'm really excited to see how AI transforms education because there's some apps, like I reviewed two of them this week. Being AI and a personal tutor, a personal AI tutor, and they seem really good for educational purposes. Um, but there's always some apps that are like not so great. So like, and there was this one comment that really bothered me, because I'm making a YouTube channel and I was like, oh, if you guys have time and you want to check out my videos, um, you can, tell me or whatever. And one person was like, oh, well, I watched your video, your intro video, and it's 3 minutes long, but I didn't find your voice engaging. And he was like, since you are doing written content, I'm going to suggest that you have AI read your content and you put that with video and generated AI images. And I'm like, no shame to the person that, like, no offense. I didn't take any offense to it, but it's just like, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And just because you can integrate AI into all these things doesn't mean you should. And I think the thing that I'm looking for most is someone who is genuine. And I'm really good at reading people, and talking to them in person. And I don't really care about, what gender you are, what you identify as, what you look like, what your beliefs are. If we have mutual respect and you are genuine, then we can have a discussion. Like, even if we have opposing views, then there's room for discussion if we have that, boundaries. But we can't have that discussion with AI because AI will do whatever you want. You can tell it to, what to believe. You can influence its output. And, sometimes you ask it questions and it just tells you a completely wrong answer. Like, for example, the tutor app that said, I was like, oh, tell me about statics, like engineering statics. And it was like, oh, a moment is not a vector, it's a scalar identity. And that was just wrong. But if you don't know that beforehand, you're not going to catch that mistake. And, I've studied statics before, which is why I noticed it. But it's not a failsafe. Like, it's not foolproof right now. And, there's a lot of different topics in AI that are being discussed right now, like biases and, cost and ownership, like open source versus private companies. But I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm just going to say, this is me, and this is my channel, and I will never, ever use AI on this channel in producing this channel. I've been using like AI applications in my reviews, but that's because I'm reviewing AI applications. So, yeah. Alright, that's all for today, and I'll see you tomorrow, or next week, or whenever I post my next video. Alright, thanks. Bye.